Hello and welcome to the Make Ideas Reality podcast. I'm Justin White, aka The Garage Avenger. We live in a world of things, a consumerist black hole. And it's proven that consumerism forces people to work harder, borrow more money, and spend less time with their loved ones. It gets in the way of fulfilling relationships, and it negatively affects our overall well-being. But we're all doing this dance. So how do we change the music? My guest today, Pierre, the Swedish Maker, has thrown his dreams of owning an iPhone 13 and dusted off his old gramophone in an effort to stop his consumerist life crisis and start enjoying quality family time and the freedom to work less and live more. In this episode, Pierre shares with us the steps he's taken so far towards his dreams of living a simple country life. We delve into Pierre's life crisis. We talk about the positives and negatives about uprooting your life to pursue a dream, the importance of having the support of your partner, and we look into the things that you could cut down to help you pursue a similar dream, perhaps. If you have ever wanted to do something crazy, like move country or pursue your dreams of doing something, but you just don't know where to start, perhaps this is an episode for you. So stick around and enjoy the show. His colleagues enjoyed going to work, but he didn't enjoy the perks. He was sick of all the numbing, but a big change was a-coming. Welcome to the show, Pierre, the Swedish Maker.
That was great. Thanks for having me. It's exactly true. My colleagues enjoy going to work. I do as well sometimes, but I do also want to leave as quick as possible.
I don't think you're the only one, Pierre. That's for sure. There's many people probably feel exactly the same as you. Was it statistically 85% of us hate our jobs?
Yeah, for sure.
Before we get started, I wanted to allow you to introduce yourself. So who is Pierre, the Swedish Maker?
So my name is Pierre Bolmer. I'm a 38-year-old guy. I work as an assistant principal in a high school. I'm a husband and a father of 3 daughters, and I'm a hobby maker. I post my woodworking and leather crafts project on Instagram and YouTube. And I currently live in a town called Halmstad on the west coast in Sweden, but we plan to sell the house and move to a farm outside another city to live more on our terms, you could say.
Yeah, I mean, that's why why I put you on the podcast. You and your wife decided to make a big change, and that's the topic of today's podcast, is to work less and live more. And we kind of in this world where we just buy things, important things like food and shelter. But if it was just food and shelter, I sort of started wondering a few years ago, like, how many hours would you actually need to work to cover that basic need of food and shelter? So I did a rough calculation couple of years ago, and I realized that it was only 16 hours each, me and my wife, so 32 hours a week we'd need to work to cover those basic costs of simple mortgage repayments and food. And we live a luxurious life too. Like we have a big house and we have all these things, right? So I started wondering though, like, if you're so deeply unsatisfied with your life and work, and want to work less, let's look at the amount of hours we actually need to work. And that's why we're talking to you, Pierre, because you and your wife decided to make a change and change things up and hopefully live life more and work less.
Yeah.
So before we go deep into our topic though, I did want to go a little bit into like your journey and context. You just briefly mentioned it when you introduced yourself, but how did you get into this making thing? And then how did you also get into doing YouTube videos?
Sure. So the making, I guess, started way back when I was a kid. I've always been kind of introverted, or rather, very introverted. I remember I loved being at home, and whenever my friends called me and wanted to do something, I didn't really feel like it. I just wanted to stay at home. I did go and play with them, of course, but I could spend hours just rearranging my room, figuring out where I could move the furniture to have that feeling of a new room. So I guess that introverted side of me has kind of led me into doing things that I can do on my own. And also, I think I got a lot of curiosity from my father. He was also sort of a maker, but more like an artistic maker, which I never really understood. But he was very curious of new things, and I think that he gave me that, and I tend to try new things. And whenever I try something new, like I learned to play the guitar, or I learned the leather craft, I feel like this is the thing I want to do for the rest of my life. I get so excited about it, but after a couple of months, I find something new that I get equally excited about, and I forget about the leather craft or the guitar. So over the years, I think I did a lot of making, whether it was like Photoshop or making a website or music. Mm-hmm. I always loved like creating new things. Which also means I didn't get very good at anything, but I can do a lot of different stuff. By the way, the word maker, I kind of like that word because it doesn't imply that you're very good at anything.
That's so true.
Like if someone says they're a woodworker, that says that they're both working with wood, but also it kind of implies that they're really good at it, even if they aren't. But maker to me is just something you do, but you don't also say I'm good at it.
I agree with that because we often don't put a professional tag on ourselves.
So I think the introverted side and my curiosity from my father was how my making started, and for the YouTube thing, I was having some sort of crisis about 3 years ago. I was working as a teacher at the time, but I really felt like I needed to do something else. And I had this quote from Steve Jobs, like haunting me. He was talking about how you can't connect the dots looking forward, only looking backwards. And he meant that you gather like experiences and you learn things during life that you might be able to use for something in the future. So I was watching a lot of YouTube back then, and I just connected the dots. I realized that I had been playing around with video editing. I had been doing Photoshop. I was already making a lot of things in like wood and leather and tormenting my friends on Instagram with it. So it just became clear to me that maybe I should start YouTube. I also think I watched like a video of Bob Claggett from I Like to Make Stuff, where he was like talking about how he was going to go full time with his YouTube thing. And I didn't realize you could do that back then, but that also kind of spawned me into thinking, well, maybe I can as well. I can't even now, 3 years later, but yeah, that's how I got started in making and in YouTube.
You say you can't, but right now, but do you believe you can?
I believe I can. I will. In a year from now, I will go 100% full YouTube, even though I don't have the money to cover it. But at least it's one of my dreams to go full time on YouTube and whatnot around doing YouTube, like doing ambassadorships for companies. Just being in the maker sphere and making some money is good enough for me.
Yeah, so you don't have like goals to be a millionaire in this whole thing?
Not at all.
No. I think they're modest goals and something that's worth pursuing rather than those searching for money. I like it. But you mentioned before, and you've also mentioned in some of your videos about having a life crisis,
Mhm.
and that how somehow led you down this path of simplifying life, and looking at moving. You mentioned moving to another simpler life, whatever you want to call it.
Mhm.
What do you think caused this life crisis? And was there an exact moment when you decided something really drastically needed to change?
I think the life crisis kind of came out of me not feeling that my work was rewarding. Um, and I worked as a teacher at the time, but I just felt that I was doing the same thing over and over again. And also seeing my colleagues, how they enjoyed their work and staying late at work. I just felt like I wanted to go home. And it wasn't, I think I was a pretty decent teacher. I mean, I had good colleagues. I was rewarded like a career thing we have in Sweden, where good teachers get they get a salary bump and some more time to inspire other teachers. But none of that really made me feel that I wanted to go home less. I just wanted to go home instead of being at work. So I did enjoy parts of it, but I always came home tired from work as well. I didn't really have any energy left. And that's when I realized that working doesn't only take the time that you spend at work, it's also stealing your time in the evening because you're tired from working. So the spare time that I had after work just didn't feel as worth as much as the time I spent at work. And with kids, you have to use that time to be with them, or you want to use that time to be with them, but you also need to feed them, and you need to do some cleaning perhaps, or maybe work out to have energy to go to work and to be a parent. I just felt like we were giving all of our life to work and so little back to ourselves. So I think that was kind of what the crisis was, and still is in some way.
Yeah, was there an exact moment where you decided that this is something we're going to make this change?
Yeah, I think there was. That was pretty recent, because back then when I had that crisis, I talked to my boss at work about it. And that was when she offered me to take over a retiring assistant principal. And then I saw that as a new challenge at work. So we never did anything about it back then. But both me and my wife has since then started thinking about how can we make money other ways, or how can we spend less money? And just from a philosophical standpoint, what is the best way to live life? Is it through working for someone else, or is it doing something for yourself? So around this Christmas, I was feeling the exact same way I did 3 or 4 years ago, and we talked about it again. And me being a spontaneous guy, I just told my wife, let's do it, sell the house and move right away. But she was a bit more calm and collected, and she was like, let's plan this out. Let's decide to move in a year or so, and figure out all the details.
Well, let's talk about this move. What exactly are we talking about here?
So we're planning to move in about a year from now. So we have a house back in Halmstad that we plan to sell, and we plan to stop working, both of us. We're not going on a sabbatical or something like that. We just quit our jobs. We moved to this farm, which is my wife's father's farm. So she's going to get the farm like an early inheritance thing. So we have some safety by moving here. So, right. But then again, we sell the house that we really don't own. It's basically the bank who owns the house, but we will get some money from selling the house that we can use to renovate the house on the farm, because it's really, really worn down and needs some serious renovation.
Yeah, and for those who are maybe going through a similar situation, going through their version of a life crisis, just not knowing what the hell they're going to do, and they just don't love what they're spending their time doing. Is there anything you wish someone told you back then that maybe you could pass on to them now?
I'm not sure. I think people are, when talking about this thing, people are really supportive and saying like, go for it, just do it, do what you dream about. But I've also heard so many people talking about their dreams as well. Like they say, I want to start a cafe. Well, my dream has always been to start a hostel, or so people tend to have the same dreams, I think, but they want to see others try it. I think, to know that it's possible. I'm not sure, but I wish maybe I wish someone would have just told me go for it back then, but I'm not sure. Maybe it's the right time now.
I mean, you always have to weigh up the risk too. It's not like you're just by yourself. You have wife and you have 3 kids now. There's a lot going on, and I empathize too with your situation. I remember some years back, especially when the kids were really small. You know, you feel like you just go to work, and then you're focused on these little humans till they go to sleep, and then you have to like clean up the mess and the trash that they left around. Or do the dishes, and then by the time it's come 10 o'clock, you're screwed, and you're like, is this what life's about? And I've definitely felt at that point. That was probably where I also started looking at my hobbies and things like that, and what I valued too, because I think there's something about having a family for a man that just like, we don't have that nurturing in our DNA. It's I'm not saying it's not there, but it's like it's not inbuilt in our DNA where we want to nurture all the time. So we are as men generally looking for outside purpose to provide a service, or feel like we're valued in some form. And with your small family, you don't really get that from small kids, knowing your value. Or, for example, getting affirmations from your kids that you're a good father, right? That only comes from perhaps your wife, if she thinks you're good enough, Yeah. So,
yeah, that happens at times where my wife tells me like asks me critical questions, or critical questions like, I think you should. Did you talk to our daughter because she was feeling a bit let down by you? I feel like, oh man, I need to. Then I feel like a really shitty father. But then again, I need to. I think I've said it in the past, but I need to do the hobbies I do in order to be a good father as well. I need to spend some time in my workshop in order to be a good parent. Because if I'm 100% being a parent, it's not for me. It doesn't work very good at all. I'm not a good parent, but if I do that.
I feel your pain there too. It's like when you said your daughter was feeling a bit crappy about things. Like my son says things like, for example, we were going to like a family park just recently, and he asked, like I wasn't there, like I was right next to him, but he asked his mother, "Is Dad coming?"
Yeah.
Because he kind of knew that Dad often works in the garage a lot, or sometimes hasn't been there for some of these activities because he's got a project that he wants to get finished. I remember I drove late a week later to like a little holiday we took around the country just to finish a project. And I'm in that situation now too, where I'm about to fly to Australia in a couple of days. I haven't finished projects. In my soul, I know that I need to spend time with my kids and my wife before I fly to Australia, because I'm not going with them. I'm doing this trip alone. But then my head says, but you haven't finished the project. You got to get it out there. Like, but I keep on saying to myself, like, no one cares. No one cares. I haven't got any messages from anyone saying, hey, where's your ladder light project video? Why isn't it out yet? Like no no one's staying up at night like I am thinking about these things. Like they don't care.
No.
So we often get ourselves raveled up in all this.
Yeah, it's stress you put on yourself.
Mm.
It was funny. We were like 2 hours ago. I was at the beach, and my daughter, she's 6 years old. She's a bit afraid of the water, so she has those blow up things around her arms.
Yep.
And I was literally blowing up one of them, and she was holding the other one. I was helping her because my wife was helping our youngest daughter, and she turned around and said, "Mom, can you help me put these on?" And I'm like, "But I'm helping you right now. Can you? Am I not here for you?"
These are the trials and tribulations of fatherhood, I think.
Yeah.
I wanted to get a little bit back on point with regards to, making a big change, like you're deciding, uproot your family, sell your house, move to the country. There's, probably less job prospects there, although you're a teacher, so that makes things a little bit easier, I would say. What do you see as the positives and the negatives of making changes like you're planning?
So right now, I think I only try to see the positives. I mean, going through a change like this, we need to look at it positively, because otherwise it might not work. But if I'm to be totally blunt with myself, I think the fear of regret is one of the negatives. We currently have 2 good jobs. My wife is a teacher. We live in a great neighborhood. We have good friends around us. We are leaving that to move away to a farm where we don't really know anyone except my wife's family. Our kids have no friends here, and we're just risking everything. And the risk that, like, I'm afraid of, like, in 1 year or 2 years, feeling like, why did we go through with this? But that's one of the negative sides I think I see. The positive is much easier. Like, we have this idea of being able to be more self-sufficient, and working less also buys a lot of time. So for instance, I love baking bread, but I never have time to bake any bread unless it's on the vacation. If I weren't working 100%, I would be making all the bread that we eat, probably. I would have time to grow potatoes. I would have time to grow tomatoes and make my own ketchup, or like I see so many positive sides of the change, at least things that I want to try. Also the money is a negative side of it all. We won't be able to go on any vacations anytime soon, but I don't want to either. So that's the thing. I don't want to buy a boat, or I don't want a cleaning service around my house. I want to do it myself. Or I don't want to go to a gym before I go to work, to sit on a bike where someone is yelling, "We're going up a hill." I want to ride on a real bike up a hill, feeling that I have all the time in the world to go do just that. Yeah.
No, but I think it's great you talk about things like that. The simple stuff, like we are in a world where we're like getting, home delivery food services and cleaning services just because we have no time, because we're either too busy working or too lazy, one of the two. But most of us, especially in the Western world, seem to be too busy at work. We work more so that we can pay for the things that save us time, because we're always at work. It doesn't make any sense.
No. It sounds crazy when you put it like that. Yeah.
But I mean, you talked about risk earlier, and I wanted to sort of touch on that, like uprooting your life and family, moving to the countryside, and starting all over seems like a really daunting and risky task. Does it really feel like a risk? And then what preparations have you guys really done to mitigate the risk that you guys are taking?
Oh, well, it does certainly feel like a risk. Or both yes and no. Like I said, we already have this farm. And that's something not everyone has, of course. But like I said, we aren't like trying to save our house back home. We're just getting rid of it and quitting job. So it feels like we're taking the plunge head first. We have done some preparations. We started redrawing this house that we're going to renovate. We contacted the realtor back where we live to get help with what to do with the house before we sell it. We started looking into schools for the kids up here, and the oldest daughter, she said, I only want to move if I can have a horse. So we need to figure that out as well.
Blackmail by the kids. I love it.
Yeah. And I also learned that in Sweden, you can't have only one horse. You used to be able to in the past. You could have a horse and just like a rabbit or something in the stable. But nowadays you need two horses.
Is that expensive? Law?
Yeah, it's a thing.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. I didn't know that. Wow. There you go. We've learned something about Sweden's horse laws.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, but we made like a wheel for the entire year, what we need to do and when we need to do it in order to feel like we're moving quite safely without risking everything all at once, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you guys are making like sacrifices before making the jump. What sort of sacrifices can someone look at, like if they also want to make a change like yours?
The most obvious thing that always comes to mind is money. I think everyone tends to think like, yeah, you can do that because you have you can afford it, or you can try to do it because you can afford it. But I encourage everyone to like look at what they spend their money on, and if anyone wants to try to do a change, I think you can, because it doesn't always need to be moving away or quitting your job. It might be that, like you did, reducing the time that you're at work. Or the only thing I think is that if you're unsatisfied with your current state, you need to take some risk to be able to get somewhere else. You can't get somewhere else without risking anything. And you can always look at what's the worst case scenario. What's the worst that could happen? And oftentimes you find that it's not anything that I can't cope with. Like what we did, we looked at what's the worst thing, and we were like, yeah, maybe we need to move back to my mom's house or something like that. But we can live with that for a while.
Yeah, and I think like, is it that bad? You know, like moving to your mom's house whilst you sort some stuff out. Like, probably not.
No.
You know, and in some ways, like, it might make you the relationship better because you spent, you know, those months together as a family, together with your mother, and you know, and that sort of thing. I definitely see like the sacrifices we made. Like, I decided to work less so that I could do things like this, and mainly like just to be happier person, not necessarily produce anything with the time I have. Because I found like once I put a timestamp on the time that I had, I became miserable. You know, like if I set deadlines to things, I became uninspired and you know, unmotivated for projects, because like there was a pressure on there, and then you know I never seemed to get enough time to do the project, you know. So despite having the extra hours, you know, that I have at home, because it also comes with the fact is like my kids come home from school and I can be there for them, you know. I can cook dinner for them, I can do things like that whilst Kristen is at her day job. And so you know that helps me as a human being and as a father to feel like I'm contributing and I have a more relaxed life. But it can easily be turned around when I start putting pressure on myself to, produce videos or produce projects or put out podcasts or all those sort of things.
Mm.
Now, I want to talk about your family. You've talked a little bit about talking to your wife about doing the change, and often these these jumps, you need your family to be on board for it to be successful. How like on the scale of 1 to 10, how supportive has your wife been and the family been on this decision?
I would say 10 because, like I said, we're moving closer to her family. So she always wanted to move back here. And also, like I said, I want to try going 100% on YouTube, but I'm also renovating the house at the same time. So we're getting 2 for 1 in that one. But I asked my wife about that. Like I said, can you work 100%? Because we need to work when moving, so that I can renovate the house and do YouTube full time. And she said yes. So that's how supportive she is. She's going to work full time whilst I renovate the house. And my daughters, well, they don't really have a say, but I think they're pretty excited about it as well. The youngest one is only 1, so she definitely didn't have a say, but the other ones feel kind of excited, and the oldest one, as long as she gets a horse, everything is golden, I think. Then we have my mom. So my dad passed away a couple of years ago, and my mom moved closer to us. We live in a small village outside of a city.
Yeah.
So she moved there to be close to us. So it's been a bit harder with her because she kind of moved to be closer to us, and then we're like, bye-bye.
Yeah.
But she would only ever say supportive things, which she has, but I know that we leave her there. So I have offered her to come stay with us here in the farm, but we'll see. But everyone is very supportive in the family so far. So it feels good.
Not everyone, everyone's partner or family might be as supportive. Do you have any advice for like how to get them on your side?
Just being honest, and by talking about it, I guess. Then it comes down to how understanding and willing you are to each other in the couple. I talked to my wife directly after I posting my first ever YouTube video. I was like, I know I want to pursue this. I want to do this thing. I want to keep making videos. I just enjoyed it so much. And I told her that it's going to put some extra pressure on her. And she agreed that I should pursue it. But then it comes down to, you have to keep talking about it in order to be on the same page at all times. Like we had a couple of months ago, I was like frustrated because I never really felt that I had any time in the workshop. I mean, I could go out in the workshop for 1 hour, but then I had to come back in and make lunch or do something else. And then back then she said, maybe it's better for you if you have one entire day in the workshop. And I also know that day is you being at work basically, and I can do other things with the kids instead of just hanging around the house hoping that I'll be there or something like that. So I think talking to each other and being honest about how you feel and knowing that you have to compromise with each other. But you must have a ton of knowledge on this as well, since you must have a very supportive wife.
I do have a very supportive wife. Just literally minutes before we started this recording, my wife was on the phone with me because I was stressed out because I'd never worked I was changing the recording, device to do this podcast. She had used it before. I'm like, how do I do this? And I'm stressed out. I need help with this. And she was on the phone with me, supporting me in this. I wasn't alone. And to your point where you were talking about, feeling like you didn't get any workshop time, I've also had that conversation with Kristen where I felt like, okay, well, I don't feel like I can get enough time, and she wants to give me the time, which is great. But what I realized is like sometimes you just can't turn it on when the creative switch.
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
So you get this day
Mm,
and you're like, nothing happened on
mm,
that day. And you feel bad because your wife gave you this day to be productive and be creative and do it. And you don't feel you made inroads on that. So I think the big change that I've made since then is just constantly talking to my wife when I'm feeling it.
mm,
I'll just say like, hey, any chance I can jump in the workshop for an hour or two?
mm,
And then if she's like, no, we've got this on, I'm like, oh yeah, sorry, I forgot that.
mm,
My bad. But often she's like, yeah, I'm just doing washing, or I can sort out dinner. That's fine. You go out and do it.
mm,
And we've had that conversation about being in the zone and not being in the zone and feeling unproductive and that sort of thing. So we communicated the whole way through. And I can only imagine how difficult it is when you don't have someone that is as supportive to your things.
yeah.
So, I wish I had some help to help those who don't have the support of their partner, but I really don't know if I have something there that they could use.
No, I'm not sure if I have anything other than both of us saying the same thing, that we're talking constantly to our partner. I think that's one of the keys, at least. If you're not talking about it, you won't get anywhere else but frustrated. So talking about it is key, I think.
Yeah. You said something in one of your last videos where you were talking about how most of us use our income to pay for things we have no time to do. And I mentioned this earlier too, so we're buying, the house cleaners, who are getting the food delivery services, all that sort of stuff, because we're working too much. But we need to work more to pay for those things. It just seems ludicrous. And I came across a statistic that said the average American lives for 28,383 days. And after childhood, that leaves 23,360 days, 8,477 days of which we will be sleeping, and 3,200 days of which we will be working. And it goes on, and you get the point. But long story short, on average, we only have about 3,800 days to do what we actually want to do.
That's crazy, yeah.
Which is crazy considering we had nearly 30,000 days to do something, to live our lives. What are the things you are cutting down on to give yourself more time to do what you want to do?
It's weird that it's weird that we're sleeping more than double the time than we have days where we can do what we want, but we should sleep less, I think. But we're definitely cutting down on all the excess of life. We won't be traveling, we won't be going to restaurants or eating smashing dinners all the time like we do now. I feel like we're always adapting to the income that we have. Like we've been earning more and more money since we started working, but we never really felt like we had more money. It's just we adapted to our expenses. So what we want to do now instead is reducing the amount of travel that we do that is basically connected to work as well. We want to grow a lot more of the food that we eat, starting small and growing it over time. We're going to try to eliminate all of our loans. We might have to take some loans to finish the house, but hopefully not. So what we're buying ourselves is the time, I guess. And I still don't know what we can do with the time on our hands, but hopefully we can use it to make up for the lost income. Like I said, baking bread, or we'll probably be working more or as much here on the farm. but I think we can also incorporate the kids in a lot of it. Like my kids really enjoy doing things together. Instead of me buying them toys, because I don't have time to spend with them, usually buy them toys that then they place on the floor all over the house, and never play with. Doing things together, like they love when my father-in-law is driving the tractor here on the farm. They love they'd much rather be with him in the tractor than playing the iPad, for instance. So I think we can work, but we can work together with the kids, or incorporate them in the time that we spend on the farm, so that we can still work as much as we want, but we can work with the kids, enjoying time together, like
yeah,
that.
so you get that quality time with family, but at the same time you're doing work. It seems smart to me. I mean, I was actually just looking now on this statistic. Like, we are apparently, the average American will commute for over 1,100 days of the year. Oh, like, sorry, not of the year, but 1,100 days in their lifespan. Like, that's also something that came up in a book I just finished reading called Someday is Today by Matthew Dix. And he talks about how he lives basically next to his job, because he saves a huge amount of time.
Yeah.
He can drive to and from work within 5 minutes. And so that allows him to save an immense amount of time to do the things that he wants to do. And he did some mathematics in the book, but it was a ridiculous amount of time in a lifespan that he was saving by only driving 5 minutes to work.
Yeah.
So it was interesting.
1,000 days. Yeah.
Yeah, it was. That's the average, is like over 1,000 days of just commuting to work.
And it isn't free either.
No, right? And that costs a butt ton of money. And the diesel prices these days, oh my God.
Yeah.
And even electricity prices if you drive an electric car, which most Norwegians are these days.
Yeah.
But, I mean, still, but it's time. So, I mean, I used to see it like, oh, then I can catch up on podcasts and learn things on my way to work, which is all well and good. But what would I rather be doing? Learning and listening to podcasts, or actually doing? So that's part of my point of view now, is like, I don't want to work far away. Right now, I'm 15 minutes drive away. But if I could work at my local school, that would be a much smarter decision for my time usage.
Sure, yeah.
I wanted to finish off talking about this. Like, people often have a vision of what their big dream looks like. What's your vision look like, and what makes you believe you guys can do it when so many fail, and even more don't even try making a change like you guys achieved?
Yeah. Well, we still haven't done it, so it might fail along the way. But I have such a romanticized vision of this life. Right now it's summer, everything is beautiful and alive, and maybe you should ask me again, like in November, when it's raining and there's mud up to my knees and it's cold. And no, but the vision really is to see us having the freedom more than anything else. If we want to open up a flea market during summer, we can try that. Or if we want to start a cafe, we can do that. We can rent out some space, maybe start a woodworking evening course or a leathercraft course. There are so many ways of finding happiness and an income that we can control ourselves, that I see in this vision. I see it like, let's try it out. If it doesn't work, we'll scrap that idea and find something else. And the vision is heavily based upon that. I love working, and my wife does as well. So we don't have a vision where we rebuild a house to sit on the porch and look out over the fields. We both see ourselves working on the farm, because making and doing things is what gives us meaning, at least. I think the reason many people don't try is because of what you talked about in the before as well. Like we get stuck in this loop of expenses and also expectations from others. We need to find our own way and just go with it. If you want to try something out, you should definitely calculate the risk, but then go for it. I couldn't live with myself like growing old and thinking, what if we tried that thing we thought about 40 years ago about moving to the farm? I would always think, what if? So
I think for a lot of people, I hope I'm not speaking out of turn here, but I think a lot of people just don't know what they want. And they're unwilling to go try a whole heap of stuff because it, uses time, but they'd rather sit around and live an unfulfilling life. It's a weird cycle. And I think kudos to anyone who's going to try to do something different, because it takes some balls. And I know that, like, I've had my struggles, even just internally, about what I'm doing and am I doing the right thing. But I keep on saying to myself, like, I want to be happy. I don't want to retire. I just want to work and enjoy what I do, and by the time I retire, the retirement age will be freaking 80 or something. And, like, we'll be dead anyway. So why wouldn't I want to work the rest of my life with something I actually want to work with? And whether that's being on a farm, doing what you're thinking, or, making things in your garage, or doing something completely different. Like, it's up to us. It's our lives. I find it really interesting. The people that are trying something different often have the same mentality of thinking with regards to, like, not living life with regret. In fact, one of the new things that I've got now is from this new book is he gives a step-by-step guide of, like, how to help yourself, basically. And one of the first ones he tells you to do is go take a picture of yourself and, make it look old, and then stick it up in all the places that you see, like, you often are, like, for example, on your computer screen, or, whatever. And then, you see this old guy, which is supposedly you, when you're 80, staring back at you saying, like, what are you doing? Like, is this what do you really want for me? Am I going to regret this when I'm, 80? Like, so I think it's an interesting, I'm looking at the photo now. I look so funny, but, but I think
you have that photo on your laptop.
Yeah, I have it on my desktop, on the background. So it's funny because I look at it and I think, oh my God, like, if I look that good when I'm 80, I'm pretty happy.
I have another quote from Steve Jobs, or a quote, but one thing he said that also stuck with me is that he looked himself in the mirror every morning, and whenever he felt, and he asked himself, like, do I want to do the things I'm about to do today? And whenever the answer was no, a couple of days in a row, he knew he needed to change something. So I've also done that in the past. Like, just think about it. If do I want to do the things I'm about to do today? And quite often I've come to the conclusion that I don't want that. So I know, like, I need to change something.
There we go. Wise words from Steve Jobs again.
Yeah.
Rest his soul.
Yeah.
I'm going to move on. And but before we go into the rapid fire 5, I wanted to thank my patrons and also share some feedback. So firstly, thank you to all my patrons. You guys rock, especially my top tier heroes, Stian Turhus, Sylvester Arneson, Andreas Volman, and Ryan Wilson. If you'd like to support the show, please head over to patreon.com. There is a link in the show notes. And I'd really appreciate your support. But, like, again, if you don't, I'd just love to hear some feedback. Like from a listener I got recently, he wishes to be unnamed. He writes, "Hi, Justin. You wanted some feedback, so here are my thoughts. Your interviewing style is great and your questions are very thoughtful. Though I I thoroughly enjoyed the podcast. I get disappointed when your guests don't answer the questions. Don't take it personally, but I think you need to do a better job at getting some of your guests to answer your questions. And he carries on. He says some other very lovely things, but I'm just going to stop it there. And I think it's really important to me that I also have some negative feedback for the show, because how can I improve if I don't know what I can improve on? And I implore you guys, if you want to send me some feedback, a guest recommendation, or perhaps you're struggling with something and you'd like me or my guest to talk about this issue, send me an email to makeideasrealitypodcast@gmail.com, or of course you can send me a DM on Instagram @GarageAvenger. Now, let's get into the rapid fire 5. You ready, Pierre?
Yeah, I'm ready. I hope I answered your questions previously correctly.
Well, it's I mean, I take it like, just going back on that. I mean, it's not the guest's fault, and in he kind of brings it up rightly. I mean, it's my job to get you guys to answer the questions that I ask, right? And so if you guys don't do that, then it's my podcast, and I need to take some responsibility for that. So, I get his point. And I know there's been a couple of podcast episodes where I thought, oh, yeah, he didn't actually answer my question, but I'll just move on. But everyone has their right to their opinions, and I would love to hear everyone's opinion, because it helps me grow this show and keep building on it. So appreciate that. Sure. Let's get into the rapid fire 5. Here we go. What's something people get wrong about you?
I think the thing that I've heard most people is that I look very calm, but usually I'm not calm on the inside. I easily get stressed out and I have a hard time calming down. My wife knows that about me, but apparently it doesn't show.
So you're stressed on that inside and calm on the outside.
Yeah,
that works for most people, though.
Yeah.
It's much worse if it was the opposite way around.
Yeah.
What's something you like doing that has nothing to do with making things?
I really enjoy sports. I watch cross-country skiing. I watch chess and some tennis on the TV. And naturally, I like playing all of those things as well. I don't watch football or soccer, but I enjoy, like, cross-country skiing is so therapeutic to watch. It's very popular in Norway, I know. And chess is as well.
Oh my God, it's really popular. Like, the crazy thing is, like, I moved here and I thought, if this was Australia, even if we had a world champion chess player, there was no way it's going to be telecast on TV.
Yeah.
But in Norway, yep, they even have a show where they literally strap a camera to the front of a train and the train drives around for 24 hours.
Slow TV.
Yeah, it's called something like Around Norway or something like that. It's called.
All right. In Sweden, we have Follow the Moose. We film the moose walking from one end of the forest to the other. It's going on for a couple of weeks on TV.
Oh my God. All right, let's move on to the questions.
Yeah.
What is the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
I think my father used to say, who cares what they think? And that's a pretty good advice, in my opinion. I mean, how much time some people spend on thinking about what matters to others and just focusing on yourself, and don't care what others think. And if you succeed at that, you can drive around in a shitty car, you can wear whatever you want, and you can go by your own gut and not anyone else's. So who cares what they think?
I agree. But I mean, to a certain degree, like, if I care what people think, if they are wanting to give me feedback and support me, I want their thoughts. But, if they're going to put me down, or if I'm worried about, putting something out and how it will be interpreted by people I don't even know, then no, I don't care what they think.
Yeah.
Yeah. What does happiness look like?
Mm, well, to me, happiness isn't a constant state. It's something you feel every now and then. But like the closest I've come to feeling content with my life is whenever I feel free, I think. So it goes along the lines of what we're doing. Whenever I don't have any obligations I need to take care of, I feel content, and every now and then I feel happiness. Yeah.
And the last question, who should be the next guest on this podcast?
I was thinking about this earlier, and I think Sam from Monkey Boy Workshop has made a very cool transition in his life from a theatrical guy into a woodworker with a business with his wife. We had him on our podcast. I have a podcast together with Steve Bell and Andy from Potato Woodworks, and he really inspired me to start a business with my wife. So yeah, he's an inspiring guy, I think.
Awesome. Please give that podcast a shout out so people know that it exists as well. What's it called?
It's called Three Northern Makers.
There you go, guys. Go have a listen to Three Northern Makers as well, and get to know these guys as well. They've got their own journeys and everything as well that they're going through, and I'm sure everyone will get some value from listening to what's going on. I want to say thank you, Pierre, for coming on the show. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks
for having me. It's been really nice.
Yeah. For those who want to find you, where can they go?
The Swedish Maker on YouTube and Instagram is my handle. That's basically the only places where I'm at.
There you go, guys. I will put those links in the show notes so you guys can go check out the Swedish Maker. I'm going to leave you with a simple quote from Bryant H. McGill. The new slavery is consumerism. If you feel stuck in an endless loop of work, eat, sleep, what are you going to do about it? What is really important for you? How can you cut out the things you don't need in your life? I know I don't want to lie in my deathbed and feel like I was too scared to give it a go. And I want more than the average of 3,839 days it is to do what I love to do. And I hope you got some value from this episode and that you've been inspired to go make the idea of working less and living more a reality. I'm Justin White. Thank you for listening. Until next time, keep pushing yourself, keep ballsing up things, keep learning, get inspired, and I'll catch you on the flip side. There we go, mate.
Hey, there we go. Nice.